We knew the exact day our love would end. The timer appeared above their wrists the moment they touched hands. 6 glowing numbers. Bright red. Cold. Unforgiving. 182 days. The entire train station went silent around them. People stared. Some with pity. Some with relief. Some with the uncomfortable expression people make when witnessing tragedy from a safe distance. But 17-year-old Ava Sinclair could only stare at the countdown burning above her skin. 182 days. 6 months. That was how long the system believed her relationship with Kai Mercer would survive. And in the year 2149, the system was never wrong. Nobody remembered when relationships stopped being emotional and became scientific. It happened slowly. First came compatibility algorithms, then emotional mapping, then neural prediction systems. Eventually, the government introduced something called the Eternity Program, a global technology designed to eliminate heartbreak. Every citizen received a compatibility implant at age 16. The implant analyzed emotional chemistry, behavioral patterns, conflict probability, attraction longevity, trauma responses, and future psychological development. Then it predicted exactly how long a relationship would last. Not approximately. Exactly. And terrifyingly, the predictions were always accurate. Couples with 50-year timers stayed together for life. Couples with 3-week timers barely survived a month. The numbers became more trusted than emotions themselves. Because emotions lied. But the timer never did. Kai Mercer wasn't the type of boy parents trusted. Dark hoodie. Motorcycle. Constant bruises on his knuckles. The kind of quiet that usually meant hidden pain. Most people at North Haven Academy stayed away from him. Rumors followed him everywhere. Fights. Detentions. Family problems. But Ava noticed something strange about him long before they officially met. He always sat alone at lunch. Always read old paper books instead of digital screens. And every Friday evening, he secretly fed stray cats behind the school science building. No one else seemed to notice. But Ava did. Because Ava noticed lonely people naturally. Maybe because she was one herself. Ava Sinclair came from one of the wealthiest families in New London City. Her mother worked directly with the Eternity Program developers. Her father publicly praised compatibility technology in interviews constantly. Their family represented the perfect future. Controlled emotions. Predictable relationships. No unnecessary heartbreak. Everyone expected Ava to eventually match with someone whose timer lasted decades. Someone stable. Safe. Approved. Certainly not Kai Mercer. And definitely not 6 months. It happened accidentally. Rain poured heavily outside school while students crowded near the exits waiting for transport drones. Ava slipped slightly on the wet stairs. And Kai caught her arm before she fell. The second their skin touched, the timers activated instantly. Bright red numbers appeared above both their wrists. 182 days. Gasps spread through the hallway immediately. Someone whispered, "Oh no," because everyone understood what 6-month timers meant. Temporary love. The dangerous kind. The painful kind. The kind people avoided emotionally because endings were guaranteed. Kai immediately let go of her hand. But Ava kept staring at the countdown, her heart pounding violently. Because somehow, even while seeing the expiration date of their relationship, she couldn't stop looking at him. In New London, relationships with timers under 1 year were strongly discouraged. Not illegal, but socially avoided. Schools even offered emotional counseling to students with short-term pairings. The logic was simple. Why emotionally invest in something guaranteed to fail? Most people walked away immediately, protected themselves early, avoided pain. But Ava couldn't. And honestly, neither could Kai. The next day, Kai found Ava sitting alone on the rooftop garden during lunch break. He stood awkwardly near the doorway. "You should probably stay away from me." Ava looked up slowly. "Why?" Kai laughed quietly. "You saw the timer. So it ends badly." His voice carried strange certainty, like someone already familiar with losing things. Ava studied him carefully, then asked softly, "What if 6 months is still worth something?" Kai looked genuinely surprised by that question. Because nobody spoke like that anymore. People only valued permanence now, not moments. After that, they started spending time together secretly. Late-night video calls, hidden rooftop conversations, train rides across the glowing city. And slowly, the countdown became impossible to ignore. 170 days. 161 days. 154 days. Every second mattered now. Every laugh felt temporary. Every touch carried expiration. And strangely, that made everything more intense. Because when people know time is limited, they love differently. Harder. Faster. More honestly. Kai never talked about the future. Not once. No plans. No promises. No someday. At first Ava thought he was emotionally guarded. But eventually she realized the truth. He was protecting himself. One evening while watching city lights from an abandoned rooftop, Ava whispered, "Does the timer scare you?" Kai stared toward the skyline silently before answering, "Yeah." Ava looked down at the glowing countdown on her wrist. "Me too." Then Kai admitted something quietly. "My parents had a 3-month timer." Ava froze slightly. What happened? They stayed together anyway. His jaw tightened. And destroyed each other trying to outrun the ending. That explained everything suddenly. Kai didn't fear love. He feared inevitable loss. One night Kai took Ava somewhere forbidden. Beneath the city existed hidden groups called Timeless. People who rejected the Eternity program completely. People who believed love should remain uncertain. Messy. Human. Inside an underground cafe filled with old music and analog lights, Ava listened while strangers spoke passionately. The timer predicts probability, not soul. Love isn't valuable because it lasts forever. Temporary things can still matter. The ideas sounded rebellious, dangerous, but also strangely beautiful. For the first time in her life, Ava questioned something terrifying. What if society had become so afraid of heartbreak that it accidentally destroyed real love too? Still, even while falling deeply in love with Kai, Ava couldn't stop obsessing over the countdown. She researched constantly. Compatibility hacks, neural recalibration, emotional synchronization therapy, stories of timers extending unexpectedly. Most were fake. But desperation makes people believe impossible things. One evening Ava finally whispered, "What if we can change it?" Kai looked at her carefully. "The system has never been wrong. But what if we're the first?" Kai didn't answer. Because secretly, he wanted to believe that too. It happened during a blackout. The entire city lost power temporarily after a solar storm disrupted the upper grid satellites. For the first time in years, New London became dark. No holograms. No advertisements. No glowing towers. Just stars. Real stars. Kai and Ava sat on top of an empty train station watching the sky quietly. Then Ava suddenly started crying softly. Kai immediately turned toward her. "What's wrong?" She laughed weakly through tears. "I hate that every beautiful moment with you feels like losing something already." That sentence broke him. Because he felt exactly the same. Kai reached for her hand carefully. The timer glowed above them. 127 days. Then finally, he whispered the truth both had been terrified to say. "I love you." Ava's tears fell harder instantly. Because somehow hearing those words with a countdown above their heads made them infinitely more painful. And infinitely more real. A week later, Ava's mother discovered everything. The relationship. The timer. The meetings. And the disappointment in her eyes hurt more than anger. "You know how this ends," her mother said softly. Ava crossed her arms defensively. "You don't know that." "Yes," her mother replied quietly. "I do." Then she looked directly at the countdown on Ava's wrist. "And deep down, so do you." That silence afterward felt unbearable. Because Ava hated how much fear lived inside her now. Days passed faster suddenly. Too fast. 103 days. 97 days. 91 days. Every morning Ava checked the timer before even opening messages from Kai. Every night she fell asleep terrified of the number shrinking further. And slowly, The countdown stopped feeling like background information. It became a third presence inside the relationship, watching them constantly, waiting. One rainy evening, Ava and Kai stood together beneath neon lights outside the city bridge. Neither spoke for a long time. Then Ava finally whispered the question haunting both of them. What happens when it reaches zero? Kai looked at her quietly. And for the first time since meeting him, Ava saw genuine fear in his eyes. Because nobody really knew. Relationships simply ended. Always. No matter how deeply people loved each other. Then Kai gently touched her face and whispered something heartbreaking. I think the scarier question is. He looked down at the glowing countdown. 89 days. What if we still love each other when it does? That same night, while Ava slept, her timer suddenly flickered violently for the first time ever. And when she opened her eyes in panic, the number had dropped overnight from 89 days to 30. Ava Sinclair woke up screaming. Her wrist burned like fire beneath her skin. Outside her bedroom window, neon lights from New London City flickered across the rain-covered skyline. But Ava barely noticed, because all she could see was the glowing red number above her wrist. 30 days. Her breathing became uneven instantly. No. That wasn't possible. Just yesterday the timer showed 89 days. Now suddenly, 30. Her entire body trembled as panic flooded her chest. The system had never changed this drastically before. Never. And, somewhere deep down, Ava realized something horrifying. Their ending was approaching faster than expected. Kai Mercer answered her call immediately, like he had been waiting for it. Ava. His voice sounded exhausted. Too calm. And suddenly she understood. You knew, she whispered. Silence. Then Kai admitted quietly. My timer changed too. Ava felt tears fill her eyes instantly. Why is this happening? Kai rubbed his face tiredly on the other end of the call. I don't know. But his voice carried something worse than fear. Hopelessness. The next morning, Ava confronted her mother directly. You helped build the Eternity program, she demanded. Tell me why the timer changed. Her mother hesitated too long before answering. And that hesitation terrified Ava more than words. Finally, her mother spoke quietly. Strong emotional instability can accelerate compatibility collapse. Ava frowned. What does that mean? It means relationships sometimes end faster when people become obsessed with preventing the ending. That sentence hit like a knife. Because suddenly Ava understood what was happening. The fear itself was destroying them faster. Every panic attack. Every desperate attempt to force forever. Every conversation about the countdown. All of it fed emotional pressure back into the system. And the timer responded. After that, everything changed between Ava and Kai. Not because they loved each other less, but because they became terrified of losing each other. And fear changes people. Ava started overanalyzing every conversation, every silence, every delayed message. Kai became emotionally distant sometimes without meaning to, because he didn't know how to survive loving someone while watching a clock count toward heartbreak. And slowly, their relationship stopped feeling natural. It started feeling desperate. One evening, Kai canceled plans unexpectedly. Ava immediately panicked. Are you avoiding me now? Kai sighed tiredly through the hollow call. I'm just exhausted. Or maybe the timer is already affecting us. Ava, you promised we'd fight this together. Kai's expression changed instantly. Because deep down, he was tired of fighting time itself. I don't know how to beat something designed to end, he whispered. That sentence shattered her completely. Because for the first time, Kai sounded like someone already preparing to lose her. The Eternity program officially claimed timers reduced heartbreak. But unofficially, short-term couples often suffered emotionally worse than anyone else. Because imagine loving someone while watching your remaining time together constantly decrease. People stopped living naturally. They became prisoners of countdowns, obsessed with maximizing every moment, terrified of wasting time. And eventually, the fear of loss consumed the relationship before the actual ending arrived. That was the hidden cruelty of the system. It didn't just predict endings. Sometimes it created them. Desperate for answers, Ava returned to the timeless underground group alone. Inside the hidden cafe beneath the city, old music played softly while strangers shared stories about failed timers. One older woman looked carefully at Ava's glowing wrist. 30 days. Ava nodded weakly. The woman sighed sadly. You're letting the timer love each other instead of your hearts. Ava frowned. What does that mean? The woman leaned forward slightly. The moment people start treating love like something measured, they stop experiencing it naturally. That sentence stayed inside Ava's chest long after she left. Because maybe the countdown itself wasn't the only problem. Maybe obsession was. 1 week later, Kai surprised Ava unexpectedly. He took her beyond the city walls where old forests still survived untouched by technology. No drones. No advertisements. No holographic skies. Just real wind and trees moving naturally. Then Kai handed her a small metal box. What's this? A memory capsule. Ava opened it slowly. Inside were photographs, train tickets, handwritten notes, tiny pieces of their relationship. Her throat tightened immediately. Kai. He smiled softly. If we only get 6 months. I still want proof we existed. That sentence broke her heart beautifully. Because even while expecting the end, he still believed their love mattered. For one night, they made a rule. No checking the countdown. No talking about expiration dates. No fear. Only each other. And strangely, it became the happiest night of their relationship. They danced badly beneath city lights. Shared cheap street food. Laughed until Ava cried. Kissed on a rooftop while artificial stars glowed above New London. And for several precious hours, the timer disappeared emotionally. That was when Ava realized something terrifying. The relationship only felt doomed when they focused on the ending. But Kai carried a hidden fear he never admitted aloud. He had started noticing changes already. Small ones. Subtle emotional distance appearing naturally between them sometimes. Not because they stopped loving each other, but because constant fear exhausted people emotionally. One evening he stared at the timer alone. 21 days. And for the first time, he wondered something horrifying. What if the system wasn't destroying them? What if it was simply correct? 3 days later, the pressure finally exploded. Ava accused Kai of emotionally giving up. Kai accused Ava of turning their relationship into a countdown instead of a connection. And suddenly all the fear they had buried surfaced violently. You think I'm not scared too? Kai shouted. Ava's eyes filled with tears. Then why does it feel like you're already leaving me? Kai looked shattered instantly. Because losing you slowly hurts more than losing you all at once. Silence crashed between them. Painful silence. Because both of them finally understood the truth. The countdown wasn't their only enemy anymore. Fear was. That night, after the fight, both their timers changed again. 14 days. Ava stared at the number in horror. Because now the system was practically screaming at them. The relationship was collapsing. Fast. The next morning, Ava skipped school and wandered through the city alone. Everywhere she looked, couples checked timers constantly. Comparing numbers. Calculating futures. Treating love like mathematics. And suddenly she saw how deeply broken society had become. Nobody loved freely anymore. People only loved safely. Predictably. Conditionally. And maybe, that was the saddest thing of all. That evening Ava found Kai sitting alone near the abandoned train bridge outside the city. For several moments, neither spoke. Then Ava sat beside him quietly. And whispered, I don't care anymore. Kai frowned slightly. About what? The ending. He looked at her carefully. Ava's eyes filled with tears softly. I think I'd rather have temporary real love than permanent emptiness. The wind moved gently around them. Then Kai asked the question neither had dared speak before. What if loving each other is worth the pain? Ava smiled weakly through tears. Then maybe the timer was never the point. That night they made a choice together. No more trying to beat the countdown. No more obsession. No more panic. If the relationship ended, it ended. But until then, they would love each other honestly. Completely. Fearlessly. Even if it destroyed them later. And strangely, the moment they stopped fighting time. They finally started truly living. 3 nights before the timer reached 0. Ava woke up suddenly at 3:17 a.m. Her wrist glowed brighter than ever before. Confused, she looked down slowly. And her entire body froze. Because for the first time since the relationship began, the countdown had stopped moving completely. 3 nights before the timer reached 0. Ava Sinclair woke suddenly at 3:17 a.m. Her room was dark except for the soft neon glow outside her apartment window. But something felt wrong. No, different. Her wrist burned lightly beneath her sleeve. Confused and half asleep, Ava looked down slowly. And froze. The countdown had stopped moving. 3 days. 11 hours. 42 minutes. The seconds were no longer changing. Nothing moved. The timer had frozen completely. Ava stared at it for nearly a full minute without breathing properly. Then she grabbed her holophone immediately and called Kai. Kai answered on the second ring. And before Ava could even speak, he whispered, "My timer stopped too." Silence. Heavy silence. Because in the 70-year history of the Eternity program, this had never happened before. Timers always moved. Always ended. Always reached 0 exactly when predicted. But now time itself had paused. And nobody understood why. The next day, Ava and Kai secretly visited the timeless underground group again. The older woman who once spoke to Ava examined their frozen timers carefully. Then she smiled sadly. It finally happened. Kai frowned. What happened? The woman leaned back quietly. You stopped loving each other out of fear. Ava looked confused. That froze the timer? Maybe, the woman replied softly. Or maybe you finally stopped letting the system define your relationship emotionally. The cafe became silent around them. Then the woman added something haunting. Sometimes people destroy love trying to protect themselves from loss. Kai looked down slowly. Because that was exactly what they had been doing. Something changed after the timer froze. Not magically. Not perfectly. But emotionally. The panic disappeared. Because suddenly there was uncertainty again. Real uncertainty. For the first time since touching hands at the train station. Their relationship no longer felt mathematically controlled. And strangely, that made every moment feel alive again. One evening, Kai and Ava sat together near the city rooftops watching transport drones move across the skyline. Then suddenly Kai whispered, "I used to avoid thinking about the future with you." Ava looked at him softly. "I know." Kai laughed quietly. "I think I thought hoping would hurt worse later." Ava rested her head gently against his shoulder. "And now?" Kai looked at her carefully. "Now I think avoiding hope hurts too." That sentence settled deeply inside her heart. Because finally, he sounded like someone allowing himself to stay emotionally present instead of preparing for loss constantly. 3 days later, officials from the Eternity program contacted Ava's family directly. Frozen timers were considered impossible anomalies, which meant dangerous. Government analysts requested psychological evaluations immediately. Publicly, the program claimed the system was flawless. So, if 2 teenagers somehow disrupted prediction patterns, that threatened everything society believed about love itself. Ava's mother looked terrified for the first time in years. "They're going to study you both," she warned quietly. Kai smirked bitterly. "Because we stayed in love longer than expected?" "No," Ava's mother whispered. "Because your relationship should have collapsed already." Eventually, Ava's mother confessed something she had hidden for years. The Eternity program was never truly predicting love. It predicted behavioral probability, patterns, statistics, human reactions. The system assumed people would eventually surrender emotionally to fear, conflict, pressure, and psychological incompatibility. And most people did, which made the predictions appear perfect. But Ava slowly realized something terrifying. The system had never measured the full depth of human choice, only human likelihood. That realization spread quickly once rumors about the frozen timer leaked online. People began questioning everything. What if love wasn't supposed to be optimized scientifically? What if heartbreak wasn't a flaw to eliminate? What if temporary love still carried meaning? young couples started hiding timers, ignoring compatibility scores, choosing relationships emotionally instead of statistically. And for the first time in decades, society became afraid of uncertainty again. Because uncertainty means vulnerability, and vulnerability cannot be controlled. Then one morning, after nearly 2 weeks frozen, the timer suddenly changed. Ava's hands shook immediately when she saw it. 2 days. 4 hours. The countdown had resumed, faster than before. Ava stared at the number silently while fear slowly returned to her chest. Because no matter what they learned, the ending was still approaching. That evening, Ava asked Kai something quietly while they walked beside the river. If the timer reaches 0 tomorrow, she swallowed hard. What happens to us? Kai stayed silent for a long time, then finally answered honestly. I don't know. That was the terrifying truth. Nobody actually knew what happened emotionally when timers ended. Most relationships naturally collapsed before reaching 0 anyway. People withdrew emotionally beforehand. Fear prepared them early. But Ava and Kai were different. They still loved each other completely, which meant they were approaching the end still emotionally connected. And nobody knew what the system would do then. Their final night together felt strangely peaceful. No dramatic speeches. No desperate promises. No attempts to stop time anymore. They simply existed together. Ate cheap noodles from a street stand. Laughed quietly while walking through crowded neon streets. Held hands on the rooftop where they first said, I love you. And eventually, near midnight, Ava whispered softly, Are you scared? Kai looked at the glowing timer above their wrists. 0 days. 1 hour. Then he answered truthfully. Yeah. Ava smiled weakly. Me too. Silence. Then Kai added quietly. But I'd still choose you again. That sentence broke her beautifully. Because suddenly she understood the entire point of love. Not permanence. Choice. At exactly 12 a.m. The countdown disappeared. No explosion. No dramatic sound. The glowing numbers simply faded away slowly from their wrists. Gone. Ava stopped breathing for a second. Kai looked at his empty skin silently. Neither moved. Neither spoke. Both waiting for something terrible to happen. Emotional collapse. Disconnection. Loss. But nothing happened. The city lights continued glowing around them normally. The wind still moved softly through the rooftop air. And most importantly, they still loved each other. Ava looked at Kai with tears filling her eyes. You're still here. Kai laughed softly through his own tears. So are you. Several weeks later, the Eternity program quietly released a public statement claiming rare irregularities had occurred. But deep down, people already knew something had changed forever. Because Ava and Kai proved something the system could never fully calculate. Love is not valuable because it lasts forever. Love is valuable because people choose it despite uncertainty, despite pain, despite endings. And maybe that was the part science could never truly measure. Human willingness to stay emotionally vulnerable anyway. Years later, Ava and Kai still kept a screenshot of their original timer. 182 days. They framed it inside their apartment like a reminder. Not of fear, but of survival. One evening, while sitting together beside the window watching rain fall across New London City, Ava smiled softly. You know what's funny? Kai looked up from his book. What? We spent so much time fearing the ending. She intertwined her fingers with his gently, that we almost forgot to live the relationship itself. Kai smiled quietly, then kissed her forehead softly. And outside the glowing futuristic skyline, the rain kept falling. Unpredictable. Temporary. Beautiful. Just like love. If this story touched your heart, remember this. Love does not become meaningless because it might end someday. Some relationships last months. Some last years. Some last forever. But what truly matters is whether the love was real while it existed. Comment, share, and follow if you believe love is worth choosing, even when there are no guarantees.